Fellow Zimbabweans, this is yours truly, Cde Knox. The situation in our country is becoming more and more outrageous each day. This past weekend, you saw how Mnangagwa shamelessly paraded his criminals, kuda kwashe Chabwirei and Wikineo Chivayo, around President Cyril Ramaphosa at the pre-Cape farm. You also saw how Mnangagwa and his thieves have tried to lie about the meeting to give a false impression of success to their evil intention, to mutilate the constitution in order to prolong their stay in power and steal more from you. We know their narrative is far from the truth about why President Ramaphosa came, how they were supposed to meet, and how Mnangagwa, under the influence of his Gananda, forced the meeting to be held in Kwekwe. No amount of propaganda can defeat the wave of change coming to Zimbabwe. What I can only assure you, fellow Zimbabweans, is that things are getting juicy. And to President Ramaphosa, Your Excellency, I am sure you now know the profiles of the people who were forced on you in Kwekwe at the weekend. Mr. President, these people's conduct has the potential of soiling your image and cost your presidency. I implore you to research more about this man. Vana veZimbabwe vari kuchema nevanhu ivava. Your research will show you why Zimbabweans, including retired military generals, war veterans, churches, and all progressives want Mnangagwa and his criminals to go. For your own information, one of them, the Humpty Dumpty, who is always around Mnangagwa, and as if he is his wife, his ritual sexual partner, is under probe by your Financial Intelligence Center over corruption involving 1.1 billion rands. The corruption took place right in your own country. Just last week, a South African court also froze his assets and bank accounts. But Chabwirei is the biggest and most ruthless thief Zimbabwe has ever witnessed. His criminal activities have weighed on Zimbabweans for over a decade. And he is one of the people Mnangagwa loves most. Mr. President, an understanding of these criminals will inform you why Mnangagwa is so determined to mutilate the Constitution through Constitutional Amendment Bill 3 of 2026. Mnangagwa's desire to continue looting Zimbabwe is now a national security threat, with the potential of destabilizing the whole SADC region, including your country. Mr. President, and to my fellow Zimbabweans, I want you to understand that Mnangagwa is pushing these evil constitutional amendments because of two main reasons. One, to protect their loot and avoid going to jail. Two, to continue looting as most of their corrupt contracts are ending in 2030. There is nothing developmental about this agenda. It is just protection and fortification of loot. They want to remain in power for the rest of their lives, to hide all the crimes they have committed on the Zimbabwean people. For you to understand what I mean today, I will take you through how Mnangagwa, Chabwirei, and their associates have been milking our country dry. In one transaction, they have stolen 3.6 billion United States dollars through treasury bills since Mnangagwa became president. It is very important that all of you clearly understand this reality in order to appreciate what drives their desperate attempts to mutilate our constitution. Fellow Zimbabweans, today I will give you evidence on how these billions of dollars of our taxpayers' funds have been stolen by Cde Mnangagwa and their associates. They stole the money through Command Agriculture, Kurimba Mining House, and the Mtapa Sovereign Fund. There are many more financial crimes they have committed, and all these crimes feature Mnangagwa and the Cde as chief culprits. This is the background to the corruption. And listen very carefully. Sometime in 2013-2014, the military, led by VP Chwenga, Parent Shiri, and the other generals, may their souls rest in peace, did a situational analysis of the economic situation in the country. They also assessed the popularity of Mnangagwa, who was then VP and next in line to succeed President Mugabe. They wanted to assess his electability. They concluded that Mnangagwa was not popular with the people and needed strong support, underpinned by a people-centered uplifting program. This was the reason why the military generals developed the Command Agriculture. The scheme was designed to provide seed, fuel, farm equipment, and other vital inputs to farmers in order to solve the food security crisis in the country and turn around the economy. Command mining was lined up as the next phase of this transformative program. It was aimed to foster responsible extraction of our God-given resources for the benefit of our people and the smooth functioning of our government. The generals then presented this idea in a program to Mnangagwa, the then VP. They convinced him to present it to President Mugabe as an economic blueprint that would transform the agriculture and mining sectors of our country and underpin economic transformation. Mnangagwa, with the help of General Chwenga, then Commander ZDF, sought the assistance of Grace Mugabe to present the project to Mugabe, and the program was approved for implementation. The budget for Command Agriculture was set at $1 billion US, but the headline was that the government had no money to fund this program. The generals scratched their minds on whom they could work with to bring this beautiful dream to life. The Mchurus then brought in Cde, as he was already working with ZANUPF in his Sakunda business. In 2013, ZANUPF had a 45% stake in Sakunda through its investment company, Vuto Investments. Sakunda Holdings was then brought to the table to run the implementation of the Command Agriculture program. Through Sakunda, Cde was also a partner of Trafigura, one of the biggest fuel traders in the world. Cde engaged Trafigura to provide the fuel and other inputs for Command Agriculture on credit, but Trafigura demanded security or guarantees. This is when Cde was directed by the generals to engage Patrick Chinamasa, who was then finance minister at the time. Chinamasa then proposed to secure Trafigura with treasury bills worth $3 billion United States dollars. This was the time when Chinamasa was captured by Cde until this day. Thereafter, Chinamasa became the beneficiary of Cde's benevolence. Chinamasa ended the Crocodile Motel in Rusape, courtesy of Cde. Now, instead of giving Trafigura the $3 billion in treasury bills from the government as security, Cde kept them for himself instead, with some home market, and he gave a Secunda Holdings guarantee to Trafigura. Papa is saying, Cde then engaged banks in the country and started illegally discounting these treasury bills on the black market. He mobbed money from the banks and bought United States dollars on the black market. Most of the money was used to finance his lifestyle, buy some assets in the mining sector from a UK-listed company that was in administration, Mnangagwa. He used some of it to source command agriculture inputs. This discounting of treasury bills by Cde to access cash from banks, which he offloaded onto the black market, resulted in the collapse of the local currency between 2016 and 2018. Cde yakataka kutenga nyika yese migodhi yese kuitenga kunziya yake. As a result, it caused untold suffering on Zimbabweans and wiped up more than $4.5 billion of Zimbabwean savings. Mutudza kuti ndiye munhu angatibatsira nyika pamasanction. Ndiye munhu angatiita zvese ngaatendwe aite president. Mbavha ine mutsindo yakaombekwa nemutsindo wokuba. Ndiye the key money changer muZimbabwe. Akakodzera kudonha kwemari yenyika. This forced the United States and the United Kingdom to slap Cde with sanctions. Cde individually did more harm to the country than the so-called sanctions. Muroiki Cde. So Cde's grand looting, supported by political muscle, yet this disaster Mnangagwa was now in motion. First, Cde started by looting all the cash flows in Secunda Holdings through fees. He was paying himself fees to an offshore account he held in Switzerland at Julius Baer. Kunonzi kuomora uchinopfimbika, kunopfimbika kunge nungu nditagire uyo. While he was paying himself these horrendous fees, stretching into millions of United States dollars, no meaningful dividends were ever paid to ZANUPF's Mvuto Investment for its 45% shares in Secunda. Papa say, kana mozona tumotokari tumwe tuchitengwa tutoya ZANUPF vamwe vanhu vachitengwa machembe muchidini zvozvo ndizvo philanthropist iri kubhadhara zvinhu zvayakaba zveZANUPF zvayakudzoserwa kuZANUPF asi zvichinzi ndezvake ndiye ari kukupai. Even zvinodonetwa maambulenzi chaiwo United Nations akadonetwa akanzi makapuwa nachivayo philanthropist mbwaidzi. Now, with the command agriculture in full swing, and Cde enjoying his looted millions in fees, he then started claiming that the command agriculture scheme was his brainchild. Manyumweka, kuda kuoneregwa kau command agriculture yakaisa muhomwe he began using his newly found financial war chest to start capturing power. Tiri kutaura power yestate. Hatisi kutaura power yekutungamira a burial society. Tiri kutaura power yekuda kutungamira nyika. That is when he started buying houses, irrigation equipment, cars, including cash handouts for most government influential people, including security personnel. Vane zharaka. Vanoita zvese. They cannot be trusted. This was meant to buy their loyalty and immunize himself against any scrutiny. Zwisisai vana veZimbabwe. Under Mugabe rule, Tsvangirai managed to capture Grace Mugabe until November 2017 happened to his share surplus. This is the same way he has captured Auxilia Mnangagwa today. Izvo zvekutambira mumadrezi, izvo zvekutambira mumadrezi vakadzi vemashefu, ndo area yake Tsvangirai iyeyu ichi. Haabve mumapitiko madzimai emashefu. Iko zvina kutambira kwaAuxilia. Ndo modus operandi yake murume iyeyu. He's shrewd. Ndo kubasa kwake chaiko ikoko. He begged and financed Grace to take over power prior to November 2017. Pese pamainzwa paye pachinzi munhu wese kuna amai. Zvakazodini. Zvese zvinhu zvezvo yakanga iri project yakanga yakufinanswa naTsvangirai achidya nana Gushungo nemhuri yavo. Ese madhiro tese amanzwa vachitaurwa kudini vese mhanya vese vari kuseri kwaGrace vese vaya. Asi munhu akanga ari pamberi aine nefinancial muscle ndikuda kwaSheTsvangirai. Saka akabvira kare uyo. He must not lie to you at all about having played a key role in removing Mugabe. Aigweta role yekuyaitira kuti Mugabe apinde, aitira kuti Grace apinde. He was financing the Mugabe dynasty through Grace. Ndipo pakazvotaurwa kaipapo zvakanga zvaakurongwa ndoka zvakazotaurwa kana Jabudani Sibanda. Because political power is not sexually transmitted. Ndo pazvaitaurwa panyaya idzi. Musakanganwe, zivai nyaya iyi ndoti musarasike filimu reZimbabwe. He was fighting for the Mugabes to stay in power through Grace right until the military took over power and handed it over to Mnangagwa. Military yakagara yatozviona kuti tikanonoka ipapa. Elective Congress iri kutaurwa February the following year. Yakanga riri drama iro, those were theatrics. Hapana chakanga chiripo, it was already state managed. Grace akanga achipinda. Nomunyepirwa kunzi nga achida kuti kuzopinda sekera mai kudini. Fake. After Mugabe was removed and Mnangagwa became the president, the generals then gave him all the information on how Tsvangirai was looting command agriculture and Mbuto. Toda kuti musaronzwisisa vana veZimbabwe kuti munhu unozoda zvakaita sei, watorwa, wanga watiza iwewe, wavhunduchirwa nana Grace, wadzoka vatiza Brian Grace, wadzorwa nemasoja, chigara apa shefu zvinhu zvakamira zvakadai toda kudai. Uchipiwa yese information, haana chaakanyima murume uyu nerudo rwese pachiona izvaanoita. Anzwa izvozvo, instead of acting on Tsvangirai, Mnangagwa summoned Tsvangirai to his private office. Tsvangirai turned up with a certain Julius Mapingure, better known as Shumba Mpostori. Mnangagwa told Tsvangirai that he was aware of how he was looting the Command Agriculture Program and the Secunda Holdings through his fees looting mechanism. He told him that he was also aware of the funds Tsvangirai was stealing at an offshore account in Switzerland. He ordered Chagwire that from that day onwards, Chagwire was his person, and all the money he had looted from Mvuto and the command agriculture was now his. Otherwise, he was going to send him to jail. Oh, you know, well trained and groomed by 10 flower. Abishandisa manje no intelligence ne ku intimidate povo. Achishandisa manje tactics ziwezo kuti awongotora kuti atwazviona. Secret yako yesenda ibata. Zvino kuti pfumba muromo wotondikwanisa or else ndakutokuchekereza. Akaipaka. Ingwena dzimwe nguva ingwena tinomboiti zvediriza dasapa yaiveri ingwena apa. Aiwa. This is how their grand looting partnership started and it became a well-oiled machine. Chake ngwena akwana manje. Agara nedifi manje. Nekuti panobiwa usakujelere. Panobiwa ndipo panobuda shavira kenesi ipapo. Ipapo. Ipo panta chivende chai. Trabablas. Mnangagwa ordered Chagwire not to involve anyone else in this new relationship. They now had under the command agriculture deals. The whole project has been hijacked. That is when Chagwire was cut from the generals and became Mnangagwa's personal property. Murukubabatisisa. In the meantime, General Chiwenga, Perenzishiri, and the other generals started probing and pushing for investigation into the command agriculture corruption by Chagwire, and wanted him held accountable. Ipapo do pakaita hondo ya mukuona yatiri kurwana nhasi. Ipapo murikuda kuongorora, murikuda kuzivisisa sitereti. Timana nini? Ndo pane nyaya. Ndo nyaya yafira vamini. Ndo nyaya yekuda kuti mburirwa general Chiwenga musoro iwe. Uri kuzvitaurirei? Wakazviwana kupi siyana nazvo. Angaitonzi mari yako here. Havana kumeso ka. Chagwire ran to Mnangagwa for protection against Chiwenga and others. Mnangagwa then brought in Muturi Ngube and George Gubamatanga in the Ministry of Finance, as well as his own son to deputize Muturi, to work with Chagwire, to manage, sustain, and hide this command agriculture fraud. Murukubaon, ahaya zvino, ma financial racketeers, ma commando ekuba, anana Muturi niwona Gubamatanga, vaunganidzwa manje, the so-called financial buccaneers, vaungana ku Ministry of Finance, chirega uone. Chagwire then started working with Muturi Nyure and Gubamatanga, and more team members were added, including Obenchimuka, Johnny Mangucha, Varai Joseph Odi, and Simbarashe Chinyemba. Vanonga kunzi vakati ngwari vanitumashabitiko kubakubato ane ana Johnny Mangucha ko vane musoro wake kukura kokubaba kuye akaunga davanoita. Is good to the qualities. The team worked together to find a way to hide the looted $1 billion from command agriculture. Now enter Kuvimba mining house. Chidura gate, which was started as exotic, and in between was called Gelandela mining. All sorts of names. The government, through the Ministry of Finance, was then given a 65% shareholding in exchange for non-payment of the $1 billion stolen under command agriculture. Question. Mvuto. But what was Kuvimba mining house? Chimborichi, Yumukai, into Kuvimba mining house. This was an amalgamation of defunct mines under government through ZMDC. Imukai ne mawara. Ine makambeni akawanda. akaparara ehurumende ajoiniswa dai iri ngondo dzainzi kudhara hembe yemarasirepi ndiyo iyoyi. Tagore stole these mines from the government without paying any cent. Kuvimba also brought in a few other mines which were owned by Mana Africa, which Tagore had area on board using the looted funds from Command Agriculture. Ya investment kuinvesta imari yakapiwa kuti itenderedze. As we speak today, fellow Zimbabweans, the country still doesn't know. This country still doesn't know how and what Tagore paid ZMDC to get those mines, the likes of Sandawana, Jena, and Homestead, including great giant investments, which was grabbed from the Zimbabwe Defense Forces. All this looting of government assets happened because Mnangagwa and the gatekeepers in the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Finance team, led by Mnangagwa and George Guamatanga, shielded Tagore from prosecution. Ntuli and Guamatanga colluded in covering Tagore's fraudulent transactions. So it is clear to you fellow Zimbabweans that the acquisition of the first 65% by the government in Kuvimba through the Ministry of Finance at an undisclosed price was fraudulent. This was designed to hide a $1 billion US Command Agriculture fraud that Tagore committed. Mnangagwa and the Ministry of Finance officials know this. They are supposed to be serving the people, not protecting and concealing fraudulent activities around public funds. Vana veZimbabwe, munoziva 1980 tichiwana independence kuti pakaitika mbiri yemurume ainzi Samson Mashata Bernard Paweni of Manicaland akanzi akaita kuba zvinotyisa ndana GMB ko achita madhira avaita akaita mbiri akamufira mujeri. Asi mabiro ari kuita ana Tagore nana Chivayo, he is no way anotori a saint amongst Amina Chivayo panyaya dzekuba. Just ask yourself, how was Kuvimba founded and built, seeing that the bulk of the mines it owned were previously owned by the government at the start of the Second Republic? Who approved the transfer of these mines from the government to Kuvimba? Who approved the sale of these mines from the government to Kuvimba? We need all these approvals. They have to be released. ZMTC, Cabinet, Parliament, and so forth. How did the government obtain 65% of Kuvimba? Where are all the documents and approvals relating to this deal? But fellow Zimbabweans, in 2023, another Tagore heist was looting. This was engineered around the 35% shareholding that Tagore had kept in Kuvimba after transferring 65% to the government of Zimbabwe. To kickstart this second fraud, Mnangagwa, Tagore, Mtuli, Guamatanga, Mangudja, Obeichimuka, and other financial mercenaries set up Mutapa Investment Fund on behalf of the government of Zimbabwe in 2023. Even before a board or a CEO were in place, the Mutapa Investment Fund had already secured a massive loan of just over $1.1 billion. The actual figure was $1,133,341,955 from the Ministry of Finance. The Ministry of Finance then released these funds through treasury bills. The very same instruments Cde and his associates used to steal billions from our country under command agriculture. The highest is even worse. Despite the loan being for $1.1 billion US, the ministry actually handed over $1.9 billion United States dollars, creating a suspicious, deliberate overpayment of $787,801,422 US from our national coffers. Fellow Zimbabweans, listen carefully. The Mutapa Investment Fund was established as a conduit of looting, and Mnangagwa was deployed there as chief executive officer to cover the grand fraud. Vanobaka nepenzura vakomana havachisire vakudhara kai ava vachisire analog generation of thieves. Ava ndo vanonzi madigital manje vakaipa. Since the government owned 65% of Kuvimba, Cde made another proposal to sell the remaining 35% to the government for $1.9 billion US. The actual figure paid was $1,921,143,347 US. This was accepted and the Kuvimba was revalued at a mind-boggling and fictitious $5.4 billion US. No one challenged this fictitious valuation, and with the assistance of Mtuli, Mnangagwa, and the Akabao, and the Minister of Finance, Cde was paid $1.9 billion US in treasury bills once again. While this was all happening, CBZ Capital had been approached to value Kuvimba despite it being ultimately controlled by Cde. In this report titled Valuation Report by CBZ Capital, dated October 15, 2023, they came back with another fraudulent and fictitious valuation of $3.2 billion US. To be precise, it was $3,238,119,871 United States dollars, though lower than the initial $5.4 billion US, which Cde got paid at. All this happened with no relevant approvals or any transparency around this transaction. So, fellow Zimbabweans, we must demand from the Ministry of Finance and Mutapa the evidence of Mutapa CEO, Mutapa Board, Cabinet, and the parliamentary approvals for the payment of $1.9 billion US to buy the 35% shareholding in Kuvimba. Why was the purchase of the 35% shareholding in Kuvimba considered a priority when the government already owned a 65% shareholding in the company? Why did they want 100% government ownership of Kuvimba? What was the motivation? This report by CBZ Capital, which is being held in secret, has also exposed that kuvimba was seriously overvalued. Most mines were given high values, despite that they were still under exploration, with others having been abandoned for no economic value. So overvaluing Kuvimba made sense in that the government was to be enticed to buy an overvalued entity. Iyanga ya Maria Maharaka. Ilongo ya yega, Tora Imari United. Wakomana iwao. According to the report, which had a disclaimer stating it was for internal discussions only, the evaluation did not use cash flow methods in order to get a fair value. On valuation limitations, the report acknowledges that it was based on assumptions, estimates, and forecasts provided by the management of the company and the public information to add salt to the wound. Mutuli, Guamatanga, Mnangagwa, and the others who executed this 1.9 billion US dollar heist on behalf of Mnangagwa and Cde were further rewarded. They are being given a 5% coupon, which was going to be paid as interest on the 1.9 billion US dollars treasury bills per year. This amounts to 96,057,169 US dollars per year, and it is being paid in quarterly installments of approximately 24 million US dollars until the treasury bills mature. The money is being shared by Mtuli, Guamatanga, Mnangagwa, Obey Chimuka, Vare Joseph, Simba Chinyemba, and the others, Cde included again. Now, who approved the payment of the 96 million US dollar coupon per year to Cde, on top of the 1.9 billion US dollars on this fraudulent 35% share sale in Kuvimba? So Zimbabwe, this is where we are today. So President Ramaphosa, you can now see the type of people who are around you. People who have caused huge suffering on the people of Zimbabwe. You now see the motivation for this constitutional amendment, Bill number 3. The bill is not for the people, it's not developmental. It is a thieving device. As Mnangagwa and his gang are trying to make you believe. It is for their protection from facing prosecution, from serious financial crimes, looking over 3.6 billion US dollars. Cde is for protecting these proceeds of serious crimes. Zimbabweans, I know you are very upset about all this, but we did have the details. Kune vazhinji vanogona kungoti hayi zvese izvi zvati action chete action. Takuziva kuti vanoba mukasaziva kuti zvinhu zvinobiwa sei, madhiri ekubaya anombofamba sei, hapana mazira amunozofa makaita in the future, because the power corrupts. Saka imi munofanira kunge muchizviziva, saka tikutsanangurira kuti muunderstand kuti corruption yakafamba sei kuitira mangwana, kuvhura maziso. But be assured, the curtain is coming down on these thieves. Count the days. We will never allow and accept leaders who want to go down and die with our country. We will never allow and accept leaders who think that they can loot our country and commit the most serious of financial crimes with impunity. Tinokugadzira progressive forces tiri munzira. The slow motion of a tiger is not a sign of weakness, but is a calculation of when to strike. Our country does not belong to an individual or a cabal. Leaders must come and go, and we must build our country for future generations and not to protect a band of thieves. Vivi Chwenga has already called for Tagire and his fellow criminals. Cartels, including Wikinel Chivayo, Scott Sakupani, and Delish Nguaya, to be arrested for their financial crimes. The documents are there, the evidence is there, that instead Mnangagwa is protecting and rewarding them with the powerful political positions in ZANU-PF. No wonder why you take a person like that major, that lunatic major, Tinswe, Albert Tinswa, an assassin, anosungwa agonzi na Mnangagwa muulitei, undermining the power of the police, and he is freely roaming, but he is a non-assassin. As Mboko makamudzindirira nemuchitabuditsa vanhu vekuzinara vanga vasukwa vari kuAbondolo police station. His abuse of power ireyo iyi. Wozvinonakira kwavamwe nhaika. Military generals led by Generals Chiwenga, Valerius Banda, Sanyatwe, Sigauke, SB Moyo, Parent Shiri, and others who sacrificed their lives for Zimbabwe and for Mnangagwa to be president. But he has already paid some with death, and he keeps on plotting to kill those still alive. This level of ingratitude has never been seen anywhere in this world. Ndosaka vakuru vakati kusatenda huroi avatakati isikati yenu izouya. Manje Mwari nemidzimu yedu, midzimu yenyika ino yazviramba pasi naMnangagwa izi gang of 50, pasi neCable 3, pasi ne2030, forward with one man, one vote, forward with respect for the people. Thank you, fellow Zimbabweans. Tinotenda muri kuzvionera ndiwo mamiriro akaita nyika yenyu. Muchiona President Ramaphosa vachiuya kuda kuisa madhaka mwanovaridzane hunhu ane weight inofiliwa. There is democracy in South Africa, and vakutosaka kuzviona kutoti uku kudoo nyika inonzi iyi Zimbabwe is an animal farm ichitongwa nemurume anonzi Dambudzo Disaster Mnangagwa. Hezekia anofanira kuenda pamatanda aHamani, Hamani pamatanda ake iye murume uyu. Mukaongorora, we know zvakainga President Cyril Ramaphosa. Hatingakujeje, but we know. Tinozviziva. We even knew before he came. Saka hatingazvitauri, but it is in your favor. Benzika ndere kutomomotera. Nekuti mukaramba muchirisekerera riri mumuti rinopedzisira ragara pashizha, rinopedzisira radonha. Saka ndozvi kubatsirana nekuonesana. Mamona mukomana anonzi Tagirei wamunonzwa munyeperwa muchinzi businessman, philanthropist, vanana Chivhalo. Tagirei akaita kambani yake zvakanaka yesekondari. On a very small but reasonable capital base yekuti basa rifambe. Munhu akatanga kuzivana naTagirei mune nyaya dzezvemadhiri ndaamujuru. Ndochokwadi. Amujuru ndo akazida kuti Tagirei ndo vakada kuti ZANU-PF itenge mashares 45% mukambani ya Tagirei Sakunda. This is how the relationship zvayakazviita pakati paTagirei neZANU-PF. Mapindiro akaita It was true mujuru. Then ana general waona vamwe kuti zvinhu zvingafambe sei tingawane ani munhu angaite fund this project. This is where mujuru recommended kuti aiwa musanetsekani. Let's work nemufana wetagwirei tagara tikushanda naye kudhara. This is when tagwirei akabva aitwa co-opted kuti pachiitwa cooperation manje nezanupf. Saka pamusana pemari dzaidiwa tagwirei anga ine connection yake company international company inonzi Trafigura. Saka this big company inodhira nezvefuel igora zvakawanda wanda. It's an international conglomerate. Saka zvakazoitika ndezvekuti tagwirei manje akanga ane a lot of leverage on his side. Yekuti zanupf ini togona kushanda tese but pari kuti vamwe vangu vari kuda magarantees Trafigura iri kuda magarantees. Saka zanupf government yake isina mari. Ndo pakanzi aiwa isusu handei kugovernment zvatisina mari. Yake hatichaapproachai Chinamasa as minister of finance. Chinamasa ndobva apromisa kuti aiwa tinokupai magovernment treasury bills kuti mari idese ibude. Government treasury bill is just a promissory bill yaunogona kuti unopa mari kugovernment. Government in return inoti tinozokupa mari yako after such a period. And kazhinji ndo dzinenge dzine ma-interest rates anenge ari very low because they are very secure. They are not risky investments. Saka ndo nyaya yakaitika iyoyo. Saka tagwirei paakanowana mabhiro aya mabhondi aya mabhiro aya 3 billion ikapuwa naChinamasa ndo yakabva atanga kuti aha inini ndo chief ndangu ndinda kutoita sendiri kusakunda ndo yakutogaranta international partner wake Trafigura. Ndo pakatanga mutambo wechinyango ipapo natagwirei. Ipapo ndo pakatangisa zvinhu zvese. Ndiyo mari yakare yakutambwa nayo kongonya iyi. Achitenga ma-assets. Achitwa overvalued government ichiti tokutengerai ma-shares. Echinhu chiri government inotengeserwa zvidhura natagwirei. Tagwirei in the meantime achiita mari. Saka uyu audzwa nevakomana vedu kuti chesherefu mauya zvinhu zvakamira zvakadai makarotiba ndingwena ingwena iri kuda kutomedza nematumbu ikati vamwe vese chisiya ndaini hatichidhiraiteka uwo kasandipewo ndinokuita sei ndinokuvharira iwe ndo pakabva pabvira ushamwari nani nangwena mufanira kubvisa zvinhu ndopabvira ushamwari nangwena ukuthi aiwa hatitodya imari but musi akanganwe kuti akanga atombotanga tagwirei achita sei akutamba naagiresi achivainidza G40 achitoda kutoti munhu wese kuna amai yanga iri mari yatagwirei. Pazeta 2017 akarohwa nechekuseri ndokubva zvamuyerekana zvaitika ndokubhata change kana kuti zvatagwirei munhu anonzvenga ka anenge asingakona kuti ndeipirikurira eti 1 point iyo varakasita iwo. You remember mudha chaiye achitotaura ari kugweru akati utagwirei hatisi kumuona zvakanaka kuti ari kusadirevere kana kuti ari kusaigere vachiwenga munhu anga asingasanotrust kwatrust ndobva aiwa mutango mari ndio inotaura kuna tagwirei. Tagwirei hapana paanobhilivha kuti pane panokundwa kana uine mari and he is mistaken. The situation iri munyika muno right now mari yako inogona kushaya basa. Mari yako inogona kushaya basa tagwirei. Like what is happening right now. Mirai muone. We know. Saka hapana chisingapere madzimbabwe. Amaranga kaafana. Tinokutendai. Mari pfuma iri kubiwa. Ana wikinero havana chinhu. Wikinero haana chinhu. Mayorati tagoti mari natagwirei haisi yake. Murubaona ndo chekutanga. Mari naMnangagwa iri kubva pamadhiro ake nawikinero. na Tagirei haisiriyo yoga. Ngwena akatora migodhi yese iri muno. Migodhi yese yegold yese iyayi musanyeperwe. Ndeyangwena yakatangana naNamudha vakomana vemabhemba mashurugu. Iyoyo migodhi iyoyo munhu ari kuiburidzwa yese chero kwamunofunga inini ndi ana Scottish akupwanya vaka mafurandi ekutengesa goridhi riya riya. Mnangagwa mari yese iya ndeyake. He is the monopoly exporter of gold in this country. We know it's ED. Saka mari ye inozonowanda manje zvokuti inenge yakuda kunetsa manje kumachengeterwo ayo, yakuda kukonzeresa mitauro certain accounts dzinenge dzisanzwisisike sezvinongoti anana chivhayo ivava ndo panozodiwa manje panozopinda nyaya yelaundering. Ndoikamona kwangotengerwa motokari nyangwe angotambisa magaro anotengerwa motokari. Chikonzero ndechekuti mari iyo haichisina basa, yakawandisa. Saka uone chituwo uko zvine zvimapostoro uko haikona kutaura inongorisa sapatina kana chakakuita hasitobwisa zvinonguva iri kukwana hama dzangu sikati sizofika zvakesari kuna kesari. Imari yegovernment, imari yevanhu. Shall come a stinging operation wakazviwana kupi. Munotozvidzora kana musina unoenda muchikurumbi. Chese chawakapiwa zviri kuzikanwa. Operation makazviwana kupi. Iko zvino chionai munodeploya vana maborder case innocent souls vanona kutozvimwe basa tingawane kuti sezvo zvakadzuka sende kuborder case owane basa government. Makuda kunodeploya vana izvi nomune plan yekudeploya vana tiri kuzviziva kuda kuvaita ma-agents provocators ekunoshanda tinozvirikidza vanhu nenyaya yekuti kutsigirwe chinhu cable 3 muda kushandisa vana veborder case. We've got all the information. Iwewe shoni Mnangagwa iwewe. Young man, don't be fooled by a stupid fact. I'm sorry to say this because hapana munhu anofanira kutukwirwa baba vake. But your baba is a deserving candidate for public insults. Nekuti akonzeresa kuchema kwevanhu mukati menyika. Auna kwawakabotirena maningi iwewe nyaya yako yechisoja iyoyo kuti ungobvunzwa zane basa resei. Wakatoenda kumilitary academy kweruku, otherwise iwewe wakatirenwa iwewe uri one nekuti waitiza training iwewe tinogara kumaavhenues kumahure. We know you.